Hey guys, I got a special video for you today. So over the last few days, I've been getting a ton of questions about the new mechanics in Ikoria. So I decided to make a quick little mutate video for you. It's going to start with the basics, which most of you guys will know, but I wanted to make sure they were in there for anybody who hasn't seen the set yet. But also I wanted to include at the end a couple of really interesting mechanics or kind of cheat codes or things that might not be super apparent when looking at the set. So the very first thing I wanted to talk about is the act of mutating. So there is 2 costs on the card, and the very first thing you're going to try to do is try to mutate onto a non-human creature. One of the things I get asked all the time is if you mutate a creature onto a creature with mutate, which trigger will you actually activate? Now the answer to that is actually both. So you can mutate onto something without it and you'll get 1 trigger, or you can mutate onto something with it and you'll get 2. So in the situation I have set up here, we're going to be mutating Pouncing Shark onto the Cub Warden, and we will draw a card and create 2 1/1 cubs with lifelink. Another thing to consider when mutating is which creature is going to go on top and which is going to go on bottom. Now they both have the same attack, so we might as well put Cub Warden on top to get the extra added defense. That said, the abilities as far as flying or lifelink and things like that, it doesn't matter which creature's on top. Basically, you're going to get the stats of whatever you place on top, but you're going to get the abilities of all of the creatures in the mutation. Something I do want you to consider when deciding what creature to put on top when you're mutating as well is the converted mana cost of the creature you're trying to create. This is very limited in when it is relevant, but you might know your opponent has a card like Extinction Event, or even, what is that darn creature called? Lava Brink Venturer, that's what it is. So if you know your opponent has those cards, or they happen to have the Lava Brink Venturer on the board, you might want to consider playing around that. The next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is what happens when you kill a creature with Mutate. Alright, the next thing I wanted to show you guys is what happens when you kill a creature with Mutate. I also wanted to show you kind of a little bit of an extra trick that isn't super obvious from reading the card, and that is with Broodmoth here. So when you kill a creature that has multiple creatures on the Mutate stack, all of the creatures will either die or be exiled together, depending on what the removal spell says. So if you exile a creature, all pieces of that creature that have been mutated on will all be exiled. Now, something is very interesting with the Broodmoth in that when you kill a creature, you're supposed to return that creature, if it didn't have flying, to the battlefield with a flying counter. So the question is what is going to happen to all of the cards in the mutated stack when the creature dies? You could maybe return 1, maybe none. I don't know. I mean, I do, but that's what I thought I'd show you guys as well. So we play the Broodmoth, and then we're going to go ahead and kill the Pouncing Shore Shark, which has a sprite Octopus Dasher, Sea Dasher, whatever. Names are hard. I usually know cards by their art style and not the actual title. So we're going to cast Blood Curdle on our mutated creature. And the really cool trick, oh, actually there was a symbiote Polliwog underneath there as well. So the creature had 3 parts to the mutate, and all 3 creatures came back with the Broodmoth. They all have flying counters. It's pretty busted. I could actually see myself with this combination maybe even wanting to kill my own creature to go wide and play a nice big board and then use some sort of either pump spell, or maybe we just have enough now to get in. So that's really cool. Another thing that a lot of people don't quite understand is when you're casting the mutate, can you kill in response to that, and will it kill the mutate cast as if it were like an enchantment? The answer to that is no. You won't get the actual mutate trigger, but your creature will come into play as though it were not mutated. So that's kind of an interesting thing that stops you from losing value like you would in an enchantment. And that's basically what we're going to see here when we cast Pouncing Tiger Shark on one of our Polliwog symbiotes. So we're going to cast it for its mutate cost, targeting the Polliwog. And in response, our opponent is going to cast a removal spell on the Polliwog, which will stop the creature from stacking, which is good if there are 2 mutates there. It will also stop the Pouncing Tiger Shark from getting value. as far as actually bouncing the creature, so that might be really relevant as well. Oftentimes I have found that it is more valuable to remove the creature after the fact, if at all possible, because usually the trigger from the mutate's not quite as valuable as the body being on board anyway. Also, there's nothing to stop me from mutating this pouncing tiger shark I got to keep. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the flicker effects that you guys often find in Limited. As far as I know, there's only 1 or 2 things in this format that can actually do that. So what happens if you have a mutated creature that has a ton of stacks, various creatures in the stack? In this case, I think we have 3 or 4 built up. We're going to keep bouncing and doing things. And then we're going to exile our creature and return it to the battlefield at the end of the turn. So what's going to happen is the creature going to come back all in one big stack. Is only the top creature going to come back? And the rest of the cards will fall off like an enchantment might in previous sets. In this situation, it's going to be a lot like the Broodmoth, actually. So it's a really cool interaction, and when we cast the Sky Nomad on our very large mutated creature, it's actually going to break apart and split all of our mutates, which is really neat. Sky Nomad. I talk a little faster than my audio here. Move to end step, and then we're gonna see all of our creatures come back. And again, this could work really well with pump spells. It can work with all sorts of things. If you're doing this in Constructed, you could actually be playing flicker spells that are instant casts. So in response to removal, you can flicker them and then get all of this value back on the board. All right, guys, another thing we want to talk about is copying of cards. So here we're going to be casting the blue Mythos, and we're going to copy a Cub Warden that has already been mutated onto. Our Cub Warden has flying. So now we're making a copy of the Cub Warden. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here for you. And I'm hovering over the token, and as you can see, it does have all of the mutate characteristics from the Heron that we had placed on it before, which includes whenever it is mutate, draw a card. It still has flying, and it still has all of the other abilities. The only thing it wouldn't, benefit us is if we had it bounced or something like that. Then the entire token would go away. Flickered it wouldn't have any of the same effects that we've seen in the previous demonstrations. All right, guys, we have one more interaction that's pretty common in Limited, and what we're going to be talking about next is, I believe last, what happens if a creature that is mutated or has a lot of different creatures on the mutate stack is bounced back to your hand. So here I'm going to go ahead and place a bunch of cards onto this Heron. We have a very large flyer. Oftentimes in Limited, what is the best removal spell? A bounce spell. Sometimes that's just what you have to do. And in this case, you can see the Vulpix, the Heron, and the Lost Pride all came back to my hand. So if any of these have enter the battlefield effects or mutate effects themselves, then you're going to get value for all of those again. Oftentimes, bounce spells are the best removal for enchantment-heavy decks. Unfortunately, that doesn't work quite the same as it does for mutate creatures. Or fortunately, if you're the one with all the mutate creatures. Alright guys, so that's the end of my little video here. I'm pretty terrible at lines and YouTube, so I hope you guys will forgive me, but I did want to give my viewers from Twitch a good resource if you are struggling with some of the new mechanics or just haven't had a chance to see it yet. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll definitely see you guys in the next one. Bye guys! Thank you guys so much for checking out my video. If you enjoyed the content, please click the link below to check out our sponsor, Cool Stuff Inc. Without them, none of this content would be possible, and they've actually given us a 5% off code, so check that out. Also, a big thank you to all of you who have signed up for my Patreon. Many of you guys see your names here on this screen, and again, none of this content would be possible without you, so thank you guys so much. I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.